Welcome back everybody to your weekly dose of Souls news, whatever, it's a series now. This past week has been an interesting one, with Elden Ring receiving a massive ray tracing update included in the 1.09 patch. Ray tracing, for those wondering, is something not a single human being on Earth understands. IGN are in shambles after their PvP guide has been rendered useless. The FPS Project has now officially launched for Elden Ring, and there's an artist out there making stunning 3D renders of Bloodborne menu icons in Blender. So Elden Ring's latest patch update came out on March the 23rd. We are now running version 1.09, and this was another big one. A lot has changed. The main talking point is of course the ray tracing, which has been controversial to say the least. Many users claim to see no difference whatsoever. No difference, that is, aside from a hit to their frame rate performance. Reasons for this vary, but the main two things to focus on is that on consoles it seems you need to activate ray tracing and then quit out completely and reload the game to see any results. And over on PC, the minimum system requirements are actually quite high. Presumably a lot of people don't have the hardware for it. In reality, in an ideal situation, there is a difference. It seems to be subtle, and the main visual differences all seem to be in the shadows. Let's just bite the bullet and try for some sort of definition here. Ray tracing is a rendering technique that can simulate the lighting of a scene and in theory produce very realistic lighting effects. Okay, great. But in reality, things don't exist in a vacuum when it comes to games. Lighting is the result of many systems working together, and honestly I feel like in this case the regular ambience lighting is done more than well enough that the ray tracing isn't all too noticeable. But I guess we'll have to wait on a full report from Digital Foundry to get a clearer picture. Get it? Clearer picture? Cool. Either way, one of FromSoft's key traits is how well they iterate. There's countless examples of this, so if nothing else, now they have experience with this new ray tracing tool, and maybe we see it return in the future. Moving on. As a quick reminder, since patch 1.07, the single player and multiplayer worlds have been split apart when it comes to balancing changes. Someone should make a tier list of the most impactful FromSoft updates. I feel like patch 1.07 would be up there for sure. Anyways, now we have PvP exclusive balance adjustments which affect only the multiplayer, and then general balance adjustments apply to everything, the entire game. The PvP changes include a lot of stats balancing with weapons, spells and armor. You might not see as many white masks now that the attack power buff has been decreased, and a lot of strategies that were becoming quite mainstream have been nerfed when it comes to bleed builds, jump attacks. In the list of general balance adjustments, some things definitely stand out, one being the nerf to light roll. The distance covered has been slightly decreased, although I will say it must be quite a small change because it's hard to notice anything. A lot of weapon categories have been buffed across the board, looking at the Gargoyle's Black Axe in particular. Flails look better now, but probably still not all that viable. Whips are faster, Twin Blades more powerful, so potentially a nice shake-up of the current meta with some room for new experimentation. The Fire's Deadly Sin bug has been addressed. This is the one where status effects were accidentally added to weapon skills. People could inflict bleed on you just by standing next to you. An exploit that was popularized by IGN themselves.
Fire's Deadly Sin removes the Flame Grant Me Strength buff, but because it applies blood loss due to Blood Flame Blade, it's a great option for chasing down Maidenless Tarnished who spam their dodges.
Breathtaking self-awareness on display there. Thankfully this exploit no longer works, and let's hope it stays that way. There were a ton of general improvements made to the Colosseum. One change I personally appreciated was the new invincibility window when respawning in the Colosseum. It was a bit annoying seeing players avoid the spawn explosion and hitting you before you could move. Definitely nice to see that go. Overall the patch seems quite promising so far, although one issue did float to the surface in the days afterwards. The Jellyfish shield had its damage multiplier buff reduced a little bit from 1.2 times to 1.12 times. However, now the buff is no longer removed when swapping the shield, which means you can now stack it twice if you have one in each hand and swap them out. And as it's treated as two unique buffs, now the overall damage boost will stack. It'll have gone from 20% to over 40%. Initially people were very concerned that this could be stacked infinitely, but luckily that doesn't seem to be the case. Alright, the FPS Project is now officially launched, available on GitHub and Nexus mods. This is the first person mod that's been in open beta for a while, made by Dasav, and I made a mistake last time by saying a team was working on this. It turns out it's just him. I really enjoyed the announcement trailer. I think he did a great job on it. I thought there were some good examples of where being in first person really adds to the excitement. Like running away from the dungeon chariots, hugging Fear, the deathbed companion.
Well, we'll see. Oh! Ew! So that's what the inside of a woman looks like.
Moving on with some more community news. You may have heard of Blender. It's a tool. I tried learning it last year and made a donut and part of a well before I realized I was trash. However, that's not the case for a 3D artist known online as Sabrina, who decided one day to take the plain, simple 2D item artworks from in-game and transform them into fully rendered, glorious 3D models, complete with smoke and fluid simulations. She even has a 3-part series explaining and detailing the entire creation process from start to finish for her Bloodborne Skull Chalice on her YouTube channel. Now what I've done there is I have just mentioned Bloodborne in a video online, so I apologise in advance for the inevitable spam of depraved hunters in the comments. If you're new to this community, it's to be expected. No need to panic, it is what it is. Now, it's also time to wish a very happy birthday to Dark Souls 3, which just celebrated its 8th year, being released 8 years ago on the 24th of March 2016. We are getting old. When it comes to milestones like these, it's common to reflect upon some favourite memories. If you ask me, my favourite memory from the Dark Souls 3 release would have to be when I was invited to London for a preview event. I was allowed to record gameplay, which was such an amazing opportunity for me, but once I got back home, I realised all the footage had no audio. Of course, I made my own sounds.
How dare you?
It's surprising I was ever invited to do anything with Bandai Namco again. Anyway, if you've been around since the launch of Dark Souls 3, I'm sure you have some stories as well. Feel free to share them in the comments. And finally, I would just like to wrap up by defending myself from the recent conspiracies that have appeared in my comment section. A number of you seem to believe that this isn't my real voice, and that I've been using an AI to speak for me. Now listen, all I can say to that is, look at this, watch this. There you go. Could a real AI do that? I don't think so. Case closed. Subscribe if you want this stunning news show delivered straight to your subscription box. Next time I'll be interviewing this gentleman about the state of the economy.